Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Good. I think we're going to start now. I hope that everyone's been able to find the room. There may be the occasional individual that will come along because this room is a little bit difficult to find. But I do want to welcome you all to the council meeting. And I also want to welcome those guests that are joining us remotely via Zoom. We do have a number of individuals that have dialed into the meeting through Zoom. Questions via Zoom can be sent in on chat, and the office staff will be monitoring chat line for questions. And we'll do our best to address those questions today. If for whatever reason we should run out of time, I can assure you we will get back to anyone who had sent a question. We could answer it after the meeting if need be. So without any further ado, again, welcome everyone. I want to introduce our first speaker, which is Dr. Khosrow Adeli, President of the IFCC, and welcome Khosrow to make his comments.
Well, thank you very much, David. I want to welcome everyone to this IFCC Council, which was delayed for a couple of years for reasons you know well about. But we finally are able to have this hybrid event. Fortunately, we have, I believe, close to 20 others online and many of you here in person. So glad that we have a good turnout of our council members. And again, IFCC Council is made of representatives from national societies around the world. And I will present some slides to show you. I don't know if we can you darken this room a little bit? Can you see the slides okay? You're okay, okay. So IFCC, I'm going to try to give you a brief report about what's going on with IFCC and then we'll have more time later for discussion and open, sort of like an open forum. So there will be a series of presentation by myself, by our treasurer, and representatives from both our divisions, the division chairs, as well as we have presentations from our regional federations. Do we have presentations from our regional federation? No, not at this meeting, but we have, after these presentations, there will be time for an open forum discussion, and that will be time to discuss any questions you have or concerns you have. But I wanted to start by saying that this is a special year for IFCC. It's our 70th anniversary. It's hard to believe, but IFCC has been around for 70 years. This is a major accomplishment. 70 years of, leadership in the field of laboratory medicine around the world. And you know that IFCC, of course, is a worldwide organization made up of 6 regional federations. We currently have approximately 96 full members. These are national societies from 96 countries. All the blue colored countries are members of IFCC. And then we have also affiliate members, and these numbers have been going up actually. Just in the last couple of years, we have had a couple of new full members and a few additional affiliate members. So we're approximately getting close to 120 societies who are basically representing the entire world on the IFCC. We, of course, also proud to have 52 corporate members who are very strong supporters of IFCC, and all of the major companies in North America, in Europe, in Asia Pacific, and elsewhere are members of IFCC. Now, you know about the regional federations. these are the 6 regional federations, and they're all really important bodies that basically represent members from each region. And they're very active on their own, but they're also under the umbrella of IFCC. And we have a strong interactions. And we have actually, in the last year or two, we have tried to strengthen the relationship between IFCC and the regional federations. These are our corporate members. Actually, it's not a full list because we have a couple of new companies added to this, but these are all of the major companies that are members of the IFCC organization, and you recognize many of them. They're all paying members of IFCC, but they are also major sponsors of our congresses and conferences, sponsors of scholarships and various programs such as the visiting lectureship program, the IFCC exchange program, and several others. But as you know, IFCC is a non-political, and that's really important, especially these days. It's a non-political organization and tries to really treat everyone around the world the same. And its goal is really to establish global standards, both in science of laboratory medicine, but also in education and other areas, supporting our members, who I showed you in previous slides, and providing events such as the EuroMedLab, such as the World Lab, and other events to bring people together, basically, and ensure that there is excellent interaction between members from around the world. Now, as I mentioned, this is our 70th year, and IFCC was actually founded in Paris in 1952, and was initially, please come and join us, that's okay. Come on, join us. There are seats here. It was actually named, renamed as IFCC in 1955, and it's been really leading the field of laboratory medicine and clinical chemistry over the past 70 years. Now, thanks to Alex and Dr. Haliassos, our treasurer, who worked very hard, we have tried to celebrate the 70th anniversary starting at this meeting, but there will be additional celebrations. I guess people are having a hard time finding this place. I'll wait. So thanks to Alex, we have been able to promote the 70th anniversary of IFCC. You'll see 2 large banners in the plenary room later today during the opening ceremony, as well as multiple posters across the different areas of the Congress Center to show you, to basically remind people that IFCC has really been leading the field, as indicated here, in the leading international community of national societies, many of you, and corporate members in laboratory medicine around the world. And we're really trying to celebrate this year this important achievement. Now, we also created these posters. These posters, one is depicting all of our presidents. And fortunately, we have Professor Ferrari with us today. And one of our recent past presidents. And then, of course, presidents starting from 1952 all the way to 2022. So 70 years of IFCC. And these posters have also been posted around the Congress Center. You will see more of them. And of course, our current executive board, who will be presenting, some of them will be presenting to you. And I forgot to mention Joe Passarelli, who is our corporate representative. He will also present today. Now, the council, which is made of really you as IFCC national representatives, as well as those who are online. There are quite a few of our national representatives are online. So you made up the council of IFCC. The council really has the final say, and the executive board reports to the IFCC Council. And then this is the structure of the current structure of IFCC. We have 4 divisions: the scientific division, the education management division, the communication publication division, and the emerging technology division. We have also multiple task forces that we have formed. One of the task forces that was most recently formed, and many of you are probably aware, was in response to the pandemic. This was formed in March of 2020, so exactly 2 years ago. And this task force has been very active to try to respond to the pandemic by supporting national societies around the world. One of the tasks of this task force was to develop guidelines, especially focused on lab guidelines, such as lab biosafety, but also guidelines around testing, molecular testing, serological testing, antigen testing. And many of these guidelines have been published. We also created the online resource. By the way, this task force is headed by Professor Giuseppe Lippi from Italy, and I have been working directly with him to support this task force. And we have created an online resource. It's really nice to see dozens of countries around the world have been using this resource to help with their own countries' sort of laboratory operations in support of COVID-19 pandemic, like public health support. We also had a conference, many of you may remember, we actually had a conference, virtual conference on COVID-19 a year ago in February of 21. So there's been a lot of activity trying to support our national societies. These are the guidelines that have been published. You probably have seen many of these, but thanks to collaboration of CCLM and Professor Mario Plebani, the editor, we have published these guidelines in CCLM, and they're all freely available to download if you haven't seen them, and if you're interested, they're available also from the IFCC website. I'm happy to tell you there is a new guideline that's coming out soon on the COVID-19 variants, and that's in the works. Now, as part of our new strategic plans, IFCC has also been active in a number of other fronts. This is a summary of our basically new strategic plan for IFCC that was started in 2020, and the executive board has been trying to implement some of these goals over the past couple of years. And the main vision statement here is that IFCC wanted to be more directly supporting our members to ensure an impact, a positive impact on healthcare delivery and patient outcomes. So rather than just focusing internally and having meetings after meetings, to actually have programs that contribute to countries around the world, particularly developing countries. So one area that was identified was newborn screening, because 70% of newborns around the world are not screened right now. Only 30% of world children are screened. So huge gap, but IFCC can perhaps do some things to support, improve newborn screening. The other area is directly supporting countries that have no EQA, external quality assurance, to support EQA programs. Another is to develop evidence on value of laboratory medicine and use that evidence to promote the field of laboratory medicine. And then, of course, e-learning. And we started the live webinar series that you have seen now. It's happening regularly every 2 weeks. This started actually in fall of 2020, and now it's been going on very successfully. So this is a summary of the same slide. But I'll just briefly outline some of the key programs. The Global Newborn Screening Program, a task force was formed in collaboration with the International Society of Newborn Screening. So it's a joint task force of IFCC and International Society of Newborn Screening. And they have already started some work. They have actually identified some countries, and they're already talking to those countries about starting newborn screening programs in countries like Bangladesh and some of the other countries. So this work is in progress, and this is the task force members, but because of sake of time, I'll pass it. It's chaired by Professor Bonham from the UK and Professor Leung Pinada from the US. We also wanted to, as I said, directly support labs around the world who need EQA and do not have access to external proficiency programs. So we have, the vision was that the IFCC should directly assist clinical labs to improve their internal and external quality assurance. So this new task force is providing education on internal QC, but also not only providing education, but providing EQA materials through a partnership with a company that we have signed up with. So we're actually already, this program has just started. We already identified 10 countries in Eastern Europe, in Africa, in Asia, and in South America. And these 10 countries have already started work. 5 labs in each country is being supported. Samples were already sent in February, and now the program is started. So task force has actually been very active. They had 1 year of discussion and planning in 21, and in 22 they have actually started the pilot program. This is the task force chaired by Professor Amman from Germany and Professor Meng from US. Another area that I just attended the task force meeting, another task force formed is to develop a global reference interval database. You see, right now, clinicians, lab professionals, students, when trying to find reference intervals for any test, whether it's adult or children, there is no really one resource they can go to. They'll have to search the literature, they'll have to search books to find the information. The idea is that IFCC will provide a resource, an online database that everyone can access and be able to obtain reference interval information for tests, both in adults and children. This task force has already started, and it is chaired by Professor Zirk from Germany. And it's a very active group. And they're actually, by the end of this year, they'll have the first database ready, and it will be expanded after that. And the e-learning, and that's another program. The idea is to enhance, because IFCC is an international organization, And is most of the IFCC members cannot afford to come to conferences like this. The truth is more than 90% of our members cannot afford to come to Europe for a EuroMedLab conference or go to a World Lab conference. Therefore, e-learning is really the only way to provide education to our members around the world. So one area we started was the live webinar series. And as you know, we have had live webinars starting in fall of 2020. And last year, that was pilot. Then last year was the first year of the program. We actually had 25 webinars, 75 speakers, and over 70,000 attendees. So, and every webinar is attended by approximately an average of 4,000 attendees every 2 weeks. And both the speakers are international. Like, for example, the next webinar, the moderator is from Spain, and the 3 speakers, one is from the US, one is from Singapore, and one from Canada. So you can see the international speakers, but also international attendees. The nice thing is that the attendees, the 4,000, are from 100 countries, sometimes 120 countries listening to the webinars. So I think this has been a very successful program, and we're hoping to continue that. And I want to thank Siemens Diagnostics, who has kindly sponsored this webinar series, as well as Boston Children's Hospital, and Professor Nader Rifai has actually contributed to this program, which thank you, Nader. And lastly, but not least, we have created a task force to obtain evidence in relation to value of lab medicine in healthcare delivery. And Professor Zhen Zhao from the US is chairing it. And as David has mentioned, it's become an extremely active group, and they are working very hard, meeting regularly every month to try to make that happen. They have a number of strategies to achieve this. Okay, because of time, so this is a list of all of the new task forces. So just, so COVID-19, newborn screening, global lab quality, e-learning, outcome studies, and reference interval. So these are areas of that we felt require additional activity to fill gaps in areas that we need more information. One last program I wanted to mention is we are launching today, actually at the opening ceremony, is the Global MedLab Week. So we're going to promote laboratory medicine annually through a lab week. And this lab week would be in April of each year. So it's starting this year. You will see a lot of information in the Congress Center. We have a booth, actually, a Global Lab Week booth, but there will be, I will show a video at the opening ceremony and to get you. And I'm happy to tell you, many of the national societies have nominated champions, Lab Week champions. And these champions will be doing the promotion in their own region, in their own country. So IFCC will provide the resources, videos, we have already developed them, posters, pamphlets, and social media messages. And then the countries will do promotion in the region. So this is an exciting program that we think will really help promote the field of laboratory medicine. So the message is join us and come together and celebrate, really celebrate the impact, the important work that lab professionals do in the field of healthcare and healthcare delivery. So this is starting this month, but it will continue. The idea is that every event we will celebrate, we will promote, not just once a year. Also, we want to promote for years to come, not just this year. Okay, I think you know about some of the IFCC programs such as the visiting lectureship, and I don't have to go through these in detail. I just want to end by telling you about the upcoming conferences. We have the EuroMedLab Conference that's happening finally after significant delay, 2 years delay. It will happen in Korea, in Seoul, Korea. So please try to join us at the conference. All COVID restrictions have been lifted by the government of Korea, so you could easily travel there, and there's no quarantine requirement. So it's pretty open, and so we're hoping for a successful conference. Next year, we'll have the EuroMedLab in Rome. So again, a very promising conference. And then in 24, we have just come to an agreement with the Arab Federation, and it will be held in Dubai. And so that will be the EuroMedLab 2024. So, by the way, the Seoul conference already has a lot of good corporate support. We also have had, I think, over 800 abstracts submitted. So I think it will be a strong conference. So I hope you will be able to join us. So I'm going to stop there. I know I went over time. Thank you very much. There will be time for questions later, I guess. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Adeli. And as Khosrow said, we will hold our questions till after this first session. So next up are the financial reports. And first, we're going to call on Dr. Ozben to come up and give us a report as the previous treasurer, and then we'll follow with Dr. Haliassos.
Thank you very much, David. Okay, I don't see here, is it possible to see my slides? Otherwise, I don't want to turn my back. Anyway, good afternoon, dear colleagues, dear friends. As you know, I serve IFCC two terms as the treasurer, and the first terms treasurer report I presented to you during the council meeting held in Durban. But unfortunately, the second term's report has not been submitted to you because of the COVID. Actually, it should be submitted 2020 at the EuroMedLab Congress in Seoul, but it is postponed 2 years, now from 2020 to 2022. So I am here today to present you the 3 years treasury report, 18, 19, and 20. So, okay. Unfortunately, I don't see here. Maybe I follow here. And during my 3 years of term as the IFCC treasurer, and with the valuable help of assistance of IFCC office, especially Paula, we work together always, and we prepared the IFCC budgets, taking into account the income and budget requests of divisions. We prepare it, and the annual dues of the full and affiliate members and also the corporate members are collected, and the adherence of IFCC operational units of IFCC to their allocated budgets were followed, and the detailed records of transactions were kept. It was really taking a lot of time of the treasurer. And then reimbursements, I paid attention to do the reimbursements promptly, and the close contact has been kept with the director of the portfolio managers of the IFCC Investment Bank, Credit Suisse, to follow the situation of the IFCC investments. And we received also every month their reports, and the annual accounts and the financial actions were reviewed by an external independent auditor. We always submitted all the details to the auditor in order to finalize the actual income and expenses of each year. So this is the audit report of 2020. So in this slide, as you see, these are the actual budgets because we don't need to give the preliminary budgets. You usually are different than the actuals, but we find these figures after the audit controls, and these are the actual budgets of the IFCC for 2018, 19, and 20. As you see, total income and total expenses every year is different. Why it is so? Because the budgets are keep changing, and 2019, as you know, there was a Barcelona meeting, and because of that, our income was higher than the previous year. 2018, we had no meeting, and 2020 is completely different. Also, the income decreased and the expenses decreased because also the COVID situation, pandemics appeared. Sometimes we have a negative budget, sometimes positive, so it is not the same. So the income of the last year I am giving here in this slide, as you see, there are different items, the income originating. And in 2020, we were expecting in the preliminary budget to hold the Seoul conference, but unfortunately it has been postponed. And then the budget is completely different than the expected income. And these are the cost expenses in 2020. These are the details. I don't need to enter all the details, but I give you here in the slides the details. Mostly office expenses and operational expenses because of travel costs and the meetings in presence cannot be organized starting from 2020, and 21 was difficult and cannot be done. So the total income of IFCC, if you divide by categories, we can collect them, the dues received from the full and affiliate members plus corporate members. This is the income. And the other income, important income, originates from the congresses and conferences. But also we have an important item, income item, is sponsorships. Sponsorships are raised by functional units of IFCC from the companies for some specific projects. And this is an important income and also important activity. And some IFCC functional units are able to raise funds, and I will mention also the details in another slide. And this also is possible to carry out because it is not for money. The budgets of IFCC, usually for functional units, budgets are not carried to the next year, but except sponsorships. This is possible. And the other incomes, not so much, but royalties and the increase in values of investments and realized profits on sales of investments and marketable securities. And here in the slide, you will see the dues received from the IFCC full members and affiliate members. And we should express our thanks to our member societies and the companies for their support of IFCC throughout the years. And their continuous contribution have made possible the accomplishment of IFCC tasks and projects. And we thanks to the members, their loyalty and attention in paying their dues in the beginning of the year, because it makes the cash available. So if you see the dues in 3 years, full members, we usually received more or less the same amount, 187,000, 186, it is the same. And also affiliate members' dues are the same. The changes in corporate member dues. So there is a change. If you see 2019 is different than 2018 and 20. 2020, we had more. And this we should maybe corporate members may answer to why it is so different. And because I can only make a guess, but the real answer might be given by the corporate members. So, but altogether, our income 458,000 in 2018, 2019 491,000, and then 2020 526,000. So another income, except the dues, I said, from the congresses. But from the congresses, our income is not a regular yearly income. It is changing. And if we divide the yearly income of IFCC from the meetings, then it should be subdivided by the frequency of the events. And then you see on the last column, the yearly availability of the income, and these are EuroMedLab Barcelona, and also from the regional federations we have some incomes, and according to the guide, a memorandum of understanding signed between the regional federations and IFCC, we have some also income. Thank you. We like to express our thanks, and also EuroMedLab Athens and Durban. So this is the sponsorship, the end of year 2020, end of year, the availability of sponsorships for different projects, including also hours for several meetings of 94,000. This is the total amount, 868,631 Swiss franc. You know, the budget of IFCC, since it is founded in Switzerland, is all the figures are given in Swiss franc. So this is 868,000 for these specific projects of the functional units, and then it can be transferable to the next years till they complete the project. So, as you know, in 2016, and we moved to Credit Suisse, and in beginning of 2017, and we are receiving every month an investment report from Credit Suisse, and at the end of the year, yearly report. And after moving to Credit Suisse, a change occurred in IFCC. We started, in the past, we were paying to the banks some investment fees, safekeeping fee, and brokerage fees. And plus, we were paying also tax in Switzerland. But after moving this, we started receiving tax refunds. So IFCC is a non-profit organization, and we started receiving, we are paying, and then we are receiving it back. So, and also this Credit Suisse gives us some shares of their income, they call it dividends, in 3 different currencies. So when we selected the investment portfolio, we didn't want to take any risk, because there is always a risk, and we avoid a risk. Our aim was to have some profit, but without taking any risk, because this money is our IFCC money, and we shouldn't take any high risk. But we couldn't select the lowest one, because in this case, the expenses we pay for the bank is not covering. So we selected the most reasonable one, moderate portfolio. And according to the agreement with Credit Suisse, if we invest in their portfolio, Credit Suisse portfolio, we don't pay them any investment fee. If we select different portfolio, and then there is some investment fee. Otherwise, for safekeeping, we pay only 0.2%. So I am about to finish these are my last slides. And my term was ending, second term was ending 2020. And this is the slide. I entered the bank account December 31st night. And I took also, no, this is the report. I'm sorry. This is the report sent Credit Suisse investment overview. And maybe slides, the figures maybe here is not clear. And I wrote to you. The value, the market value of our investments at the end, the last day of 2020, 3.7 million, 3,760,691. I wrote, maybe you can not read that one. And also, I don't know if it is pointer. I'm sorry, but I did. Okay. So I thought it is pointer, and otherwise I show you here. This is a market value means the value of the investments at that moment, but this is not realized because if you don't sell it, you don't know. This is the value of the investment the last day. And since we started 2017, our return altogether 6.4% and average value 1.56%. Every year, average increase in our investment 1.56. But some years, 2020 was not a good year for investment. It was negative, but average our income was 1.56%. This was the market value December 31st, 2020. And we had also some cash. And this is here. This is I did print screen. I printed from the screen. I entered again 31st December 2020, and we had here also you see, and I wrote there also to make you see better. In three currencies, 1.3 million Swiss franc, and US dollar 31,000, euro 761,000. If we convert everything, they are already converting Credit Suisse, 2.2 million. 2.2 million Swiss franc was available as cash in the Credit Suisse, and 3.7 million also the investments. So this is my presentation, and so now I
Thank you, Congress.
okay, thank you.
Dr. Haliassos will give us the...
Thank you very much, Tomaris. We can start the next presentation, please. I'm taking over the finance from the 1st of January of 2021. So, okay. Essentially, we continued on the same work order with Tomaris, and we contacted also after, we contracted after a bid an international accounting partner to help us about the diversified accounting options that we had with IFCC as we expanded our business because of our new strategic plans and the new projects. We designed a new budget because the pandemic changed completely the financial workflow on the world and on IFCC. And we continue to make the same tasks to monitor everything. We had a problem because during the transition, and as we couldn't travel, we had difficulties, our president and me, to have our signature validated at the bank. So for the first months until the May of 2021, we were unable to make any payment, but because of the pandemic, that had not a very great impact on the functioning of IFCC. And by continuing, you see here is the budget and the actual income during 2021. You see, we lost the 1 million Swiss francs that we expected to receive from the EuroMedLab that has been postponed actually now. But even without this, we had the quite good income of 1,041,000 Swiss francs because we have done better than expected in all the categories of income. You see the membership dues that were expected at 429,000 as Thomas left it. Actually, we arrived at 516,000. Also, the royalties, the income from the virtual COVID conference was 30% more than expected. And it was a good year. This is the analysis per category. It's a little difficult to see on this slide, but you can find it on the final report if you want. The same thing presented graphically. You see the blue is the budget, the red is the actual income. You see membership dues, royalties, everything was good. We had a new category, the support for the global e-learning, and we haven't at all realized the income from EuroMedLab. The expenses are mainly the expenses to support our functional units, but also the office. And you have seen, as we have budgeted for 2021 to have travel for the various functional units, the budget was for the expenses 2,620,000 Swiss francs. In reality, we arrived only on 685. So the summary budget of 2021 expected we had a loss of 868,000, but in reality we had a profit for 444,000 Swiss francs. And the investment, you see, as Tomri said, at the end of 2020, they were at 3,700,000, but last week the final report was 4,128,000 Swiss francs. It was a good investment that we had with Credit Suisse, and you see here the graphical progression of our investments and the final gain. So I present you here the summary budget for 2021. You see, normally we have budgeted 2 million for income and 2,800,000 for expenses, and normally we expect to have a deficit of 824,000. This is unexpected because in reality next year we expect the Rome EuroMedLab that will add to the income, and so we can equilibrate the running and not lose money from IFCC. And this budget includes all the new projects that are in our new strategic planning, and I can to say you that consumes enough resources, even financially, but also your supporters, your help, as all people of IFCC works voluntarily in order to achieve these tasks. And I want to thank you, and we can continue our presentations.
Thank you very much, Alexander. Moving on our agenda, next is the corporate members report, and I want to introduce Mr. Joseph Passarelli.
Thanks. Thanks, David. So I'm going to begin first by extending a warm welcome to everyone. It's a Sunday. I really appreciate that all of the members that are here in the room, as well as the many members that are online. My name is Joe Passarelli, and I serve as the corporate representative on the IFCC Executive Board. I'm currently in my second year of my first term, and as you can see from the slides, my affiliation is with Roche Diagnostics. Of course, I'm not alone. There are many, many others that participate in very important areas within the IFCC, and you see their names here. We have a colleague of mine who's actually in the room, sitting on the scientific division. We have two colleagues actually on the emerging technologies division. We have a colleague also on the education and management division. I'm going to come back to Tricia Ravalico, who is serving as the corporate representative for the communications and publications division, because there is a very important task force that was associated in 2019, and she currently is the chair of that task force. And then we have congresses and conferences. But very, very importantly, there are dozens, if not hundreds, of other corporate members serving on the various committees, task forces, and working groups within the IFCC. Professor Adeli showed you this slide, but I just want to highlight where these corporate members sit in the various divisions, and to highlight also the role of the corporate members in the divisions. They do not represent their home company. They represent all of the IFCC corporate members within the division. And that's very, very important. And it's a role that we take very, very seriously. So I would also like to say that you see at the very top, and Khosrow mentioned this, the IFCC Council, and this is why we're here today. And thank you very much for attending. So this is an eye chart. I have a second slide, which I think is a lot easier. But currently there are 53 companies. This has been updated, Khosrow, since your presentation. And so that's very, very good. And I have to say, I assumed this role about 16 months ago. And I think we've seen considerable interest in joining the IFCC, especially over the last 6 months. And we are working through a few applications as we speak right now. So here is the full list of the logos. And I put this in because it might be easier for you to identify your own company, but perhaps to identify companies that you collaborate with, companies that you have interest, and many of those companies will be here at EuroMedLab. So where do the corporate members come from? And I think Thomas, maybe to give you a little bit of the answer to your question, they come and go. You're going to see this in the next slide. But currently, as we speak today, there are 9 companies from China, 8 from the UK, 6 from the US, and you can read these as you see. And the good news is, and I know it's difficult to read, but I can explain it to you. There are currently 28 new companies that have joined the IFCC since 2014. So that's the very good news. And now, Thomas, this answers your question, I believe. Unfortunately, in the same time period, there have been 28 cancellations and 2 additional ones, including mergers. And I think we see corporate member dues change depending on which companies are joining, because there's a different fee schedule per company. And I think this is what we're seeing here. So it was recognized for a few years now that something should be addressed with this. Why do companies come on board and then leave? Sometimes companies actually come on, leave, and come back again. And so why is this the case? And I have to give credit to the late, and I say this because he's a dear friend, the late and great Professor Howard Morris, because when he was president of the IFCC in 2019, through working through the executive board, he established a task force that's solely dedicated to corporate members to enhance the collaboration, but more importantly, to retain those collaborators and to grow new collaborators from corporate members. And so here's the team. You see that Tricia Ravalico, who I mentioned earlier, is the chair. And I want to, and we have a number of people that are on the task force in the room, but I want to highlight a few things that may not be so apparent on the slide. I mentioned there were 53 companies. And you see here, if you add them up, there are, I think, 13 companies. Even that already represents 20% participation in the task force. I think for those who have a lot of experience with the IFCC, that is a remarkable level of participation. Just look at other task forces and committees and working groups. More importantly, though, if you see these names, I can assure you, because I was the original chair, but now I have to serve as a member and liaison back to the executive board, is that every one of these individuals absolutely participates. We meet at least once every 2 months. Most of the time we meet every month for 2 hours in COVID. And this is a very, very active task force. In addition, and you see the statement there, we also invite the corporate representatives that serve on the divisions to participate. And many of these individuals also participate on the task force, even though they're not an official member, because they then cascade the information through their divisions and reach out to all of the corporate members. And maybe a plug, if there's any corporate members online, and I see some others, we would welcome other companies to join. As long as your company is not there already, we would welcome as corresponding members others to join. So what are the objectives for the corporate members task force? I'm not going to go into all of these, but what I would maybe highlight is the first two. I think the first one, and this is very aligned to the vision of the IFCC, aligned to corporate members, is we want to promote the value of laboratory medicine, especially with outcome, and to really create value ultimately to the patient. So this is a focus of the IFCC. It's a focus for corporate members. And I think this task force has become a venue, a very routine venue that we have every month or two, so that corporate members can get together, share our common interests, develop strategies around this, and also, and this is my role as corporate representative, to bring this back to the executive board for their consideration and hopefully changes. And then the areas of focus that we are currently working on right now, I think the first one is the voice. We are the voice of the corporate members. The task force is definitely the most active group within the IFCC to bring back to the executive board the interest of corporate members. And I would highlight the very last bullet because it's a very important interest of mine and other corporate members, is really we would ask and hope that the IFCC can continue to help corporate members with respect to regulators and clinical societies that we have to support and work with. So that's a little bit about the task force. And so how did we come to how to address companies going in and out? And there's been a lot of anecdotal reasons why this occurs, but to address this, one of the main activities that the task force did is we developed a very comprehensive survey that we sent out to the corporate members. And I don't ask you to look at the survey and list. We had 11 statements, and we asked the corporate members to list these 1 to 11 least important and most important. And I just want to highlight 2 of them. And one is really being associated with the global leading organization in laboratory medicine, the IFCC. How do they feel in that collaboration? And the very, very last one, and that is to support the harmonization and standardization activities of the IFCC, which is where many corporate members participate. But more importantly than maybe this set of questions, we also asked 7 questions where we asked for verbatim answers. And here we hope to gain some insight. We're still going through the data right now. We also will be discussing this at the EB meeting in a few days from now. And I would just highlight a few of these. Has the IFCC enhanced membership benefits? And we've asked them to discuss has it and in what ways? And then finally, and this is an important question, is there anything that we missed that you would like to share? So we're going through the data, and we hope that from this survey and others that we will conduct, we'll not only gain a better understanding of why companies go in and out, but also to gain more companies. And so what do we learn so far? And I only have 1 or 2 more slides. I think this may be the last one, last of content, because I know we're running out of time. So what did we learn so far? Well, we learned that corporate members are interested in again, promoting the awareness of the importance of lab testing. They also are interested, and I had already mentioned this, in the IFCC helping with medical claims through the various committees and working groups to help with reimbursement. Very important, and I mentioned the scientific division is in the standardization and harmonization activities. Again, one of my real keen interests is the IFCC working with corporate members to align guidelines and recommendations and the harmonization of regulatory requirements. And I think this is connected with the next bullet, and that is the IVDR and its implementation. I know the European Federation is spending a great deal of focus on this, rightfully so. But the IBDR impacts the entire world. And we must make sure that the IFCC is also, I think, playing an important role in this. Of course, exhibits, congresses, and industrial workshops, and then to increase participation. Just very quickly, in addition to all of the members serving on the committees and working groups and task force, for all of the major conferences, we identify someone to serve on those conferences, and you can see those individuals here listed. And finally, and I've taken this over from my predecessor, we will have a general corporate members meeting tomorrow. And this meeting, I think, is a very good opportunity, not only for the IFCC Executive Board, but for corporate members to get together. The meeting is formatted. The corporate members get together for 1 hour, and we have some open discussion, and we identify topics and interests and concerns that we have for the executive board. Then they join, and we go through an open dialogue with them. And so we're looking forward to this tomorrow. I want to close by reminding everyone, and Thomas and Alexander, thank you very much. I want to close by reminding everybody of the importance of corporate members to the IFCC. You saw the percentage of just the membership dues, but also the sponsorships, the exhibits, the conferences. So we are very, very happy to participate with the IFCC, but we also hope that our support and collaboration is very well recognized, and we look forward together to working together. Thank you very much for the participation.
Thank you very much, Joe. So we have a few minutes now for questions from both the audience here as well as online. So are there any questions from anybody here relative to the presentations that you've heard? Yes, one question, please.
Just two questions.
Yeah.
First one, I'm Bernie from the UK.
There we are. Yeah, we have a microphone now.
Okay, I'll start again. Hi, I'm Bernie Crow, representing the UK. Just two questions about finance. How do you think the sort of current vogue for online meetings, especially committee meetings, will influence finances of IFCC going forwards? And secondly, can you comment on whether any of the investment portfolios are ethically invested with regards to the avoidance of things like tobacco, weapons, alcohol, and so on? Thank you.
First of all, I think that is the future, the hybrid and the virtual meetings, in completing the physical meetings that we cannot write off, because these options help so many colleagues, even at the beginning of their career, to participate in these meetings, but also, unfortunately, as is currently the situation, to people that can't participate because last moment inconvenience, travel issues, or even has been found positive to COVID, to continue and to assure their participation to the meetings. And especially by publicizing the virtual part of the meetings and involving many young people and people from regions that is very difficult, as Corso said at the beginning, to travel, to come to major meetings. We can increase our income. As for the impact of COVID in our investment, you will see that we had a small decrease of 2% the last months, the last 6 months, but he's started to go up again. And the investments are the moderate portfolio of Credit Suisse, and normally they invest in all the parts of the industry, but mostly on financial markets. So we haven't not direct involvement exactly where our money is investment for the Swiss banks. But they have to follow strict rules of the Swiss government about the fields that they can invest.
Maybe we can look a little more closely into the investments, unless Thomas, now, to answer the question about whether these are so-called ethical investments. we could perhaps get that for you later.
The story is that we have the discretionary management with the Swiss bank. That means they assure us a minimum profit, but they don't know exactly. We know the fields of the industry that the money has been invested, but not every field. And you know, sometimes we have some companies that normally they are good partners, and we found that in reality we are not so good to invest on them. But this is okay, the role of our bankers, and for this reason we are using Swiss banks.
I wanted to add something to that answer regarding travel. So IFCC will continue to fund at least one meeting of the committee or task force a year. So I think it's important to have face-to-face in-person meeting once a year. But the virtual meetings has allowed us to increase productivity by having additional meetings. Previously, task forces or committees met only once a year. And of course, you can't be very productive when you're meeting that infrequently. But now they're meeting a few times a year, some of them meeting monthly by Zoom, but they will have still an opportunity to once a year to travel and meet in person. Actually, this year, we're allowing them to attend 2 physical meetings at the EuroMedLab or World Lab, and at the general conference, since the general conference is this year. So this is actually, this year our travel expense will be higher because we are actually allowing them to attend 2 physical meetings. So, but in the future, we don't expect the travel budget necessarily to go down because we're still allowing that 1 meeting a year. We also now have more task forces, so there's going to be more travel. But I think our income has significantly increased, and IFCC finances are in good shape. So I believe we can support that.
Thank you both. I do have one question from online, and I'll quote, this is an excellent idea, the proposal from the IFCC President, Professor Adeli, to organize a conference on precision medicine. And the question is, could this event be held in Europe, depending, of course, on the international context? So, Dr. Adeli, do you want to address the question of that conference?
Yes, we had suggested that perhaps we could have a specialty conference organized. Initially, we were thinking of 2024. But as I mentioned, we were fortunate to be able to come to agreement to have a World Lab in Dubai in May of 2024. So, but we still are considering potentially specialty conferences. One conference is being discussed, it's not finalized yet, is in China in fall of 23. So not this fall, next fall, in China, in Shanghai, on precision laboratory medicine. But I think it would be a good idea to also have one in Europe, certainly. If you have the colleague who's asking the question has a proposal, they can contact the IFCC Executive Board, and we can discuss it for sure. But the Chinese Laboratory Medicine Society was interested in hosting a conference in China. So we're thinking of having a specialty conference there, but it's not finalized.
Thank you, Khosrow. Any other questions? Good. And I don't see any from online. So with that, then we'll move on to the second part of our meeting here today, the division reviews. And I'd like to call on Dr. Cobbaert to come up and give a presentation for the scientific division.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I should not stand here. In fact, I'm replacing our chair, that is Philippe Gillery. And on behalf of him and the scientific division colleagues, I'm going to present, if I get my slides, what has been passed and what are the challenges for the future. Of course, it's very familiar to you that our main focus is in fact on standardization of medical tests so that they are fit for purpose, especially for disease-defining analytes and for analytes which make use of clinical decision limits, which directly impact patient management and patient outcome. And we just heard the very important development of if the science evolve and we have to step into personalized diagnostics, precision medicine. The science evolvement together with the technology evolvement, which facilitates this, also means that metrology and the way how we standardize tests should evolve. And I see lots of opportunities there too, because if we step into a molecular definition of health and disease, it will also mean that we have better opportunities to standardize our tests instead of trying to harmonize, standardize mixtures of proteins which cover different proteoforms. So we do all of this work with an executive committee who is managing 7 committees and 17 working groups. The committees are larger. They have a team-oriented approach, whereas the working groups are more task-oriented. And we also face a big replacement in the scientific division because 4 of us are at the end of our 2nd term this year. So in line with the new vision that we are also developing for the executive board, for the IFCC scientific division and the terms of reference, we will also look to the competences that are needed in order to replace it with people that can contribute to the new requirements. What are normally our main drivers for test standardization? We of course look into where the clinical needs are obvious. It makes no sense to standardize tests which do not contribute to better patient management and patient care. So the drivers are, of course, sometimes technological push, but it must be related to clinical needs and fulfilling the gaps in the clinical care pathways. And of course, still then we have to prioritize, and the official route is going via a formal proposal. And also we must have agreement on the terms of reference. All of that has to be approved by the scientific division, but also by the executive board. And only at that stage, after approval, working groups or committees can be established. Here you get an overview of the 7 current team-oriented committees. The ones in red will deliver speakers, and these people will give lectures during this EuroMedLab Congress. So for bone metabolism, you see that Etienne Cavalier is going to lecture on the progress of that committee. Here you see the 17 working groups which are more task-oriented, and the ones in red are also going to present. It's not shown itself, it's Jos Wilders, I think, in the counterpoint discussion. And of course, I cannot go through them, but please attend them because they are very relevant. I only can come back to you on a few highlights. And so I will present some of them, some of the 17. For instance, the working group on hemoglobinopathy and thalassemia research, which is covering the standardization of HbA2. And it's already a long-lasting working group, but it's a very strategic one because it's also in collaboration with ICSH, so the Hematology Standardization Council, and the development of the reference measurement procedure it's a work in progress. It has been published last year in the special issue, but IFCC endorsement and also GCTLM listing is very important to be accomplished, so that's still pending. And of course, the commutability of candidate reference materials and the value assignments are also very relevant. The CDT working group has been a very active working group under the leadership of Jean-Dean Memont. And as you can see, and also the previous people like François Schellenberg. And as you can see, they accomplished already their reference measurement procedure in 2016, but there is still some unclarity to get the GCTLM listed. And that is also something that should be clarified under the new regime for the future, that there is clear guidance on what does it mean IFCC endorsement and what does it mean GCTLM listing. Very important for traceability of analytes is, of course, also the commutability of the reference materials and the control materials or trueness verifiers that are used in EQA organizations or by EQA organizations and distributed to medical labs. So under the leadership of Greg Miller, we see now that they are working on the establishment of procedures for how to use commutable reference materials, but also on defining criteria for acceptable commutability, also looking into correction of non-commutability bias and providing recommendations for verifying commutability. I myself chair this working group on apolipoproteins. As you perhaps know, it's also important that there is assurance of continuity of reference measurement services. And unfortunately for ApoA1, ApoB, and ApoA, there is discontinuation because there was only one calibration lab with a rather monopoly position. And now we see that because the lab has been closed, there is no continuity. So this working group is trying to set up an SI traceable reference measurement system with a bottom-up proteomics approach for 7 apolipoproteins together, which is a big challenge. And hopefully it can, we will be successful. We are still not sure. We will have a meeting also during this conference. And of course, the equivalence of protein to proteotypic digestion is very relevant, independent of genetic variants, post-translational modifications, etc. So hopefully it will be a model for protein standardization, direct protein standardization in the future. And of course, we also have to prepare the transition with manufacturers from the current WHO IFCC reference measurement system to the SI traceable reference measurement system. We do that in a global approach with CDC, with GRC, with the French Metrology Institute, etc. We also have working groups which are chaired by scientists from metrology institutes. Here you see the working group on procalcitonin, which suffers heavily from matrix effects. But these NMI scientists are very well equipped. They have a lot of knowledge which can be used in the IFCC working groups to get the group working rapidly and effectively. And that's what we learned, and we really should consider for the future also from people like from GRC, from LNA, for instance, from PTB, LGC. They have a lot of skills on the technical part, and that should be filled and complemented with the other stakeholders, which are very essential. We also have signed a memorandum of understanding with the International Society of Thrombosis and Hemostasis, that is for the PT-ENR. You can say this is an old test, but it's still there. It's on the decline, of course, but a lot of POCT devices are used by patients or in thrombosis centers. And we worked with WHO on the harmonization of the manual tilt tube method as a candidate reference measurement procedure. And we still have 2 kinds of thromboplastins as reference materials. This gives deviations on the traceability chain and all kinds of issues. So we try to work on one traceability chain and have to develop with the manufacturers, of course, one reference material. New projects are also coming up. There is already an existing collaboration also from the EU funded. For instance, PTB has a CardioMed project, which is running for a few years already on cardiac markers, on apolipoproteins and on natriuretic peptides. And the new project is here. So you see we get cross synergy between NMIs and IFCC, and also for natriuretic peptides, we will set up this working group. This has been discussed, and we have to take care of good representation of all stakeholders. New demands are also from the flow cytometric world. They are also looking for molecular markers in, for instance, extracellular vesicles. And they have set up multidimensional flow cytometric methods, which are already very well standardized. So they really know how to do this. They have accomplished that. And now they ask for more visibility and for collaboration with the IFCC through the EMD. So it would give an opportunity to be more visible. And of course, we have pre-discussed that with the EB. It still has to be formalized, but it's a good thing. That in order to spread the news about standardization, they ask here not for being helped in standardization, but to get more, to reach more educational goals and visibility. Another project which has been arisen, but is still not formally as there as a project proposal, is the standardization of neonatal bilirubin. Because in contrast to total bilirubin, neonatal bilirubin is directly determining the decision limits for phototherapy of neonates which have severe hyperbilirubinemia. And there is no reference measurement system available, which means that labs are now suffering to huge extents, and also pediatricians approached us with the severeness because of the impact, the direct impact on patient management, that we should do something about this. And here there is an opportunity to work together with the Emerging Technology Division, because we see the development of new technologies, no longer through venipuncture or capillary puncture, but going through a non-invasive way. And we hope that we discussed this also with the EB, that we can have a joint working group with co-chairs from the Emerging Technology Division and the Scientific Division to work both on new technology, new metrological traceability chains together. So standardization, harmonization, what did we accomplish? We worked on several analytes, and what we currently see is that we are not keeping pace with what has to be done. So we are running behind. Less than 10% of the tests are standardized, and we are facing new challenges, as mentioned already, especially the molecular definition of health and disease can bring us something, but we should be able to address it and to be well equipped to do that. And we have done our part of the standardization efforts traditionally, but it's time to have a more common vision with all partners and stakeholders of the traceability chain to be more effective, to be more rapid, and to collaborate at the most global scale that we can. So it's a complex field, and all of these stakeholders have to be involved. And it is already mentioned, especially now the regulators are also part of the game, and we should have them at the table. So that's something we want to reconsider also for the Scientific Division, together with the notified bodies who will determine the market access of medical tests. So lots of changes. The accomplishment of our current chair, on behalf of which I tell this, is he did an enormous amount of effort, which is maybe not so visible, but which is there, by connecting IFCC with the metrology world. Because we already discussed many times together what is needed to go forward in a quicker and more effective way. And so the partnerships with all the stakeholders like BIPM, the National Metrology Institute, WHO, etc., that has to be strengthened. The regulators are now part of the business. A memorandum of understanding was also undersigned with the Bureau International pour les Mesures in 2020, and lots of efforts have been done from both sides to interact together and to get the NMIs on board, and that has been accomplished. And I cannot go into the details. Here you see a few things. For instance, Philippe held presentations for World Metrology Day. He also was present on the European Metrology Network meeting on the right-hand side. And together with GCTLM, the Joint Committee on Traceability of Laboratory Medicine, and ICH CLR, we had a workshop in December, and we solely addressed the problems around candidate reference materials and regulators, because the regulation determines the burden for the industry to get their products standardized or re-standardized. And the burden has become so huge that we have to take that into account and to partner very well with industry also to get this clarified. So the sessions are mentioned on the right-hand side, and a recommendation will be made and will be published by the end of the year. It was under the leadership of Philippe that also a special issue was written last year, and his editorial is very worthwhile to read, as mentioned here, with 10 additional manuscripts. So what we are facing as Scientific Division is a big change in the landscape in which we have to operate as a healthcare sector and diagnostic sector. And we see that not only the COVID pandemic, the Ukrainian war, the upcoming stringent regulations, not only the IVDR, but also the REACH regulation, which will really impact the formulation of medical tests, that all cripples the way how we have to move on with standardization. And of course, the unharmonized setting, the fact that manufacturers completely changed the budgeting, they rebudgeted to the regulations, and also the innovation is more or less stopped, and re-standardization is deprioritized. So that's the reason for the limited uptake in the last 2 COVID years of new standards. And of course, it means that we have to reflect on what we did in the past. So we had a goodwill approach with volunteers, but I think the criteria should be more stringent because the world has become more complex. We can't turn the clock back, and we need to be better equipped to do this. And so it means we need better guidance. We need better to reflect on the competences of the IFCC scientific division members, of the composition. If notified bodies and regulators have to be at the table, so we should try to accomplish that. And I think we also need to be assured that we strengthen one another and not have overlap between the different partners on standardization activities. So the scope of what we are doing, I see it as a pipeline that should be created. It should be better aligned, so in order to be most effective together. And yeah, the future is ours, so it will depend on the initiatives that we have in order to accomplish this. And we hope we can present our improved vision on how to approach this at the General Conference in Brussels by the end of this year. So on behalf of Philippe and my colleague members here of the IFCC Scientific Division, I would like to thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
We'll do Thank you, Krista. Appreciate that. We'll have questions afterwards. And now for the Education and Management Division review, Dr. Rifai.
Thank you very much, David, and good afternoon. It's good to see many of you after 2 years of isolation. So what I will like to do in the next 15 minutes is to give you a brief overview of about some of the activities that we have been doing with the Education and Management Division in the last couple of years. And first of all, I would like to start by introducing the team, Vanessa Steenkamp, Andre Ziegler, Sadef Yanis, Tomasz Zima, and our IFCC liaison, Silvia Cardinali. If we look at the mission statement of this division, you will see that AMD will provide IFCC members and the healthcare community with education relevant to clinical chemistry and laboratory medicine, directed at scientific management and clinical issues. So if you want to remember a single word from this mission, it's going to be education. And this is really the essence of what we do. And basically, we try to facilitate and strengthen the dissemination of scientific information via lectures, workshops, courses, professional exchange programs, expert visits, and publication. How do we accomplish that? We had varieties of committees that focus on a particular area, usually broad areas. And also we have some working groups that focus on more specific and narrow topics. We have the IFCC Abbott visiting lecture programs, which is quite a successful endeavor. And we have also professional exchange programs. Many of you may not know really much about this particular program. And this is a program where individuals can go and spend 1 to 3 months in someone else's lab to learn a particular procedure and to bring in a particular practice to their own lab. In fact, the EB and a mandate from the president, Professor Adeli, was to make this particular program more prominent. So I'm hoping that we will be able to present more options regarding this particular activity. At the present time, we have 8 active committees that, as you see, handled wide variety of topics from kidney disease to biomarkers of cardiovascular disease to diabetes to molecular biology. And some of these committees have been closed or combined to form other groups, as we have heard earlier from Professor Adeli. For example, the analytical quality and proficiency testing were closed and they were replaced with a task force on global laboratory quality. And it was felt by EB that these tasks will be better achieved using this particular route. And also there have been some changes in the way the distance learning program is being conducted. For working groups and special projects, again, we have 2 active groups. One deals with flow cytometry and one deals with laboratory errors and patient safety. And again, a couple of others have been closed for the reasons that I have just mentioned. I alluded to the VLP, or the visiting lecturer program, earlier, and this has been really a success story for us. And unfortunately, it was the victim of COVID, mainly because the premise of this particular program was to travel from one region into another to establish new communication with scientists in that region, and also to give lectures. So with the travel restrictions that we have experienced in the last 2 years, we had to figure out ways to maintain this program, because it is purpose and mission is quite important. So, and to give you an example, in 2018 to 2019, we have supported 28 different conferences and 61 different speakers and lecturers. However, in 2020, because of the travel issue, most of these presentations were only virtual. And since we're really unsure how the whole COVID issue is going to be evolved over time and its implication on travel restriction, I think it's quite unwise not to think of alternative methods to fulfill the mission of this program. So now we are looking in many ways where we can maintain this program, and we are experimenting in virtual workshops to see if that is at all doable. So because of the time constraints, and because I would like to spend about 5 minutes on a new initiative that I think it's of importance, I decided just to highlight the accomplishments of one committee and one working group, just to give you an example on how even in difficult period of time where these individuals were unable to travel, they were actually extremely productive. The committee that I wanted to share with you is shared by Fred Apple, and is on cardiac biomarker. This is really an exceptional group, and this is just part of their accomplishment for the 2-year period. And they developed educational material for troponin and for natriuretic peptide assays. They developed and posted analytical characteristic tables for these 2 groups of analytes, which is updated quarterly. This is posted on the IFCC website, and it is not only important to practicing laboratorian, but it is of great importance to our colleagues in the IBD industry. They developed a clinical scorecard for high sensitivity troponin assays. They published 14 manuscripts in peer-reviewed journals, presented 6 workshops and 4 lectures and webinars. And in fact, there are several webinars that were organized and presented by this particular group in the last few weeks. And another thing they did, which is quite unusual, so also quite beneficial, is to develop an industry multi-sponsored workshops, get multiple companies to work together to develop these workshops, increase their presence in social media, and they held 16 virtual meetings in 2020 and 2021. Another example of what we just heard earlier, that the fact that you are not able to travel, that doesn't mean you are not able to work. The other example I want to share with you, that was the flow cytometry shared by Claude Lambert. They conducted 16 multi-day workshops, and these are on average 4 days each workshops. And their workshops, both the attendees and the faculties are international, and they published a report on the evaluation of flow cytometry. So the new initiative that I want to mention to you, I think it's a quite an exciting and new thing for IFCC, and it is only recently has been accomplished. And this is based on something that I have been involved in building for the last 6-7 years, that is based on the concept of adaptive learning. First of all, let's start by defining what adaptive learning is. Adaptive learning is how this particular program works. Through a sophisticated algorithm, the learner will be asked multiple questions, asked about the level of confidence in answering, and the system will time how long it took the individuals to answer the questions. And through a series of questions, the algorithm will be able to identify the area in which the learner is deficient, and will continue to ask the learner in this particular area and provide him or her the needed information to remedy the deficiency. Then it will move on to address another particular area. So this program is a collaboration between a Danish company called Area 9, which is the world leader in adaptive learning technology, New England Journal of Medicine, and AACC. So far, we have over 100 modules spanning all areas of laboratory medicines that have been developed. So that involved about 130 experts from around the world, spending each about 300 hours to develop each module. It is not a trivial task. And another 250 experts who reviewed and beta tested these products. So now, working very closely with the IFCC, we are going to make all these modules available to the IFCC family. And in fact, we just got the endorsement of IFCC on this particular product. So the way we envision doing it, we will take all the activities of AACC, whether it's a webinar, whether it's a lecture, and provide the appropriate links to this particular topics. For example, we just had the series on cardiovascular disease, and we will be able to provide the participant a list of 3 modules that complement what they have already heard. And we will do it for the e-libraries and all other activities. And hopefully over the next year or so, you will be able to see the results of this. And this is something that can be accessed via your iPhone or your iPad. So you can use it wherever you are, and it is free of charge. So if you wanna give it a try, for those of you who can write very fast, this is the URL to access it. And basically the registration takes about 30 seconds, ask you your name, your email, and which country you practice. And then you will have access to the entire library. So for those of you who are not fast writers, I will leave the URL in the IFCC booth. You can stop by and take it. And I really encourage our colleagues in the corporate world to help us in disseminating this information that is useful for their customers, and also hopefully we'll be able to work with the young scientist group within the IFCC to make people aware of the existence of this program. I would like to end by thanking the outstanding work of the chairs and the members of the various committees and groups we have. They have done a remarkable job during very difficult years. And I would like also to acknowledge the outstanding support that we receive from the IFCC office, and particularly from Silvia Cardinali. So thank you very much for your attention.
Next on our group, the next division rather will be the Communication and Publications Division, and Dr. Pillay.
Good afternoon, everyone. And if you're watching from elsewhere online, good morning or good evening. Thank you to the board and the council for this opportunity. So from education, we're going to another type of communication, Communication and Publications Division. So my home base is South Africa. I'm with the University of Pretoria and the National Health Laboratory Service in my normal day job. So I'm going to try and give you a brief overview of the working of the CPD division. So we have a number of members. We have, and I'll introduce you to them as I go through the various portfolios. So the CPD Executive Committee is responsible for a number of things, basically for carrying out the public relations policy as it affects production of material, which enhances the image of the IFCC. It's responsible for the electronic journal of the IFCC and the publication process of all the IFCC publications. So those are two very important aspects of the portfolio. And it's also responsible for maintaining the IFCC website, which is one would probably regard as being the front end of the IFCC. And then it's responsible, obviously, to the executive board and the council to ensure the highest performance standards. And then it also ensures the progress of each project and publication. And it's responsible for the continued production of the IFCC handbook and the annual report. And then it coordinates all the IFCC recommendations, the position papers, and documents. And then it's the publications and distance learning coordinator is a liaison to the editorial board of the CCA. And it also keeps a register of the IFCC documents. So the basic mission of the CPD is to communicate the work of the IFCC. So in other words, it's kind of the voice of the IFCC and communicating it to scientists, physicians, and policymakers. And it provides educational material in both printed and electronic forms. And so, for example, it has a close follow-on link with the Education and Management Division. And then obviously the national societies and full members are the target audience. And so essentially it's important in promoting the image of the IFCC to the individual members and to the biomedical industry, as well as the other non-laboratory healthcare community stakeholders. So the major objectives of the CPD is basically to define the types of communication and multimedia training that's relevant to IFCC members and to act as a central point for access to information sources. And it needs to identify, evaluate, and ensure continuing technical awareness of communication methods and develop new products such as the website, the virtual bookstore, and e-commerce, and together with the other divisions to make widely available new techniques for professional training, such as the self-training manuals, tutorials, and other distance learning web-based programs. And it provides the most appropriate supporting techniques for new teaching methods. So one of the effects of COVID was actually we had more meetings during COVID than otherwise because we had moved on to a new type of meeting, the Zoom meeting. So we were able to meet more frequently with shorter, more focused meetings. And the CPD has a symposium planned, which was originally planned for the original Seoul dates, but obviously has been postponed to June 2022. So that'll be a symposium on a new era in medical laboratory diagnostics management and the application of advanced mobile and web technology. So this diagram gives you an overview of the CPD portfolio. So you have a committee called the Committee on Public Relations. You have a committee on internet and electronic learning. There's the electronic news, which I hope most of you have access to and read, the electronic journal of the IFCC, and the WGIANT, which is the Ibero-American Nomenclature and Translation Working Group. And then we also have a corporate member activity, and the corporate member in this instance is Tricia Ravelico, who was mentioned by Joe, and who's been very active in promoting some of the corporate member-related activities. We have some working groups as well, which are affiliated to both the e-news and the electronic journal, and also a working group for WGIANT. So I'll start off first now with the CPR committee. So the CPR committee is chaired by Rajiv Erasmus. And in this committee, there were two new members that were introduced in this term, Dr. Khushbu Patel and Dr. Maria Carmen Pascual. And Dr. Agvedana's term came to an end, and then Dr. Peter Favat's term was extended for another 3 years. And they have a number of corresponding members and advisors as well. So this committee has its terms of reference, and they are basically to assist the IFCC in promoting the IFCC internationally to the national professional associations, and to basically promote clinical chemistry and laboratory medicine to the lay public and also to decision makers. And it coordinates the various PR activities of the IFCC units. And so as mentioned, it has a chair and then 4 members from IFCC member countries, corresponding members, and the regional Federation representatives. And they identify key PR tools and make recommendations to the CPD and other divisions. And they develop and promote promotional materials. I'll show you some of those. They also act as a link for the distribution of the IFCC brochures and other promotional material, and they assist in the IFCC in promoting visibility to all laboratory professionals across the world. They also act as IFCC ambassadors by promoting the profession, and they try to promote the IFCC activities through the use of social media. And they also try to monitor how effectively the communications are being distributed to all the national representatives. And that is often a challenge, as we will see. And as I said, promoting it to the lay public and the healthcare administrators. So they've also been meeting, they do meet very regularly, and even more so, as I said, it was one of the effects of COVID. And then they assisted with the Lab Professional Week in 2021, and they arranged for various videos to be made by the national societies, and they set up a social media page to promote the profession. So they've also, as mentioned by the IFCC president, they've also been assisting with Global MedLab Week 2022. So that's going to be officially launched this evening. And you should also try and visit the booth that has been set up. And as was mentioned, it relates to, it will also involve the Young Scientist Task Force to promote this endeavor. The challenges that they've had, this committee has, is really in communicating with the national societies, even though they've tried to use various media tools. And they tried to promote the use of WhatsApp groups within the national societies. I don't think that's gone very far. There are new initiatives. They've generated a welcome pack. And so they've proposed that every new member should be presented with a welcome pack and a certificate of membership. And it will also include the history book of the IFCC and the IFCC milestones. They've also generated a new slide deck, and this will be presented to the corporate members and the national societies. So this is briefly what the welcome pack looks like. So a set of slides, IFCC slides, and there's also a further set of slides. The future plans, so to produce assets for the Global MedLab Week and the 70th anniversary celebrations, and they will continue to strive to improve the communications between the IFCC Secretariat and the national societies, and then also expanding the efforts of translating all the major IFCC documents into Spanish and in French. And they will also produce posters for each of the, where each of the national associations will be involved. So that was CPR. Now we go on to the Committee on Internet and Electronic Learning, which is chaired by Eduardo Fregiaro from Argentina. So the chair of this committee is the Publications and Distance Learning Coordinator, and it's also a member of the Executive Committee. The terms of reference of this committee is to maintain the IFCC curriculum in line with the IFCC strategy for distance learning, and to create and promote web-based e-learning and educational activities. And then to solicit suggestions from all the member societies, committees, task forces, and working groups, and to identify and evaluate existing distance learning programs and modify these as required, and to develop new programs where none already exist, and to explore new ways of educating that could be helpful. So the members are shown here. with the chair, Eduardo Fregiaro, and then members from various countries across the world. They've had a number of Zoom meetings, and they've kept in touch regularly. They have a couple of new proposals. We are searching for a new IT partner because there is a considerable amount of work to be done in maintaining the website, for example, and that needs a revamp. And those efforts are currently in progress. In view of the changes in some of the IFCC committees, for example, from within the EMD and within the CPD, they're looking to redefine the terms of reference and actually rename the committee. So they're proposing that the committee be called the Committee of Internet and Digital Communications, because it'll more accurately reflect the function of this committee. And then they're also planning to expand into podcasts with the so-called voices of the IFCC. And then we have the website, which is maintained by Denise Topku from Turkey. I'll briefly show you some of the web analytics in the few minutes that I have left. Our users, this shows you the distribution of where most of our users are coming from across the world, and the top devices that are being used. So we used to have a fair amount of desktop, on the left, desktop usage and mobile usage. We're trying to move, when we move to a new website, we'll try and make the new website more mobile responsive. These are the most visited web pages in the IFCC website, and EMD, obviously, most people will go to look for educational material. A lot of the homepage news carries announcements, webinars, the electronic journal, IFCC e-news, calls for nominations, and also a publication called DIV, which is from South America. And then they also update the corporate member logos, and these are examples of those. So as I said, the planned activities are to update the website, and also to develop a new mobile app, and to develop an analytics dashboard so we can track how many downloads and how much usage is being made of the website. And then also to, as I said, to make the website more mobile friendly, and to try and get some eAcademy integration into the site, and then also have more social media integration and tracking. And then we have the electronic e-news, which is, the editor is Katerina Sara from Greece. And this carries, if you've not had a chance to look at it, please read this regularly. You'll get all the IFCC news. And we've had a number of different types of material. And these are just examples of the content that you will find. We have a close relationship, this e-news with Lab Medica International, and that's an example shown here. We also have items from the EFLM. And then the e-news also has a working group, which tries to meet sometimes, but it doesn't always work very well. And then our corporate member has been involved in promoting the Univance program. And as Joe mentioned, Tricia, she's been very heavily involved in that. And then we have finally the electronic journal of the IFCC. We've basically, it's been listed on PubMed, and it's currently being evaluated for an impact factor by Clarivate. So hopefully it will have the impact factor received one of these days. It's taken a long time. We also have increasing numbers of manuscripts. So we had to invest in Authenticate, which is a plagiarism detection program. And we'll have a number of thematic issues. As far as Scientometrics goes, the site score has been doing very well. And for 2021, if you look at the bottom, the site score is 5.6. So the journal is doing very well, and probably because it's fully open access, I think, and it's everybody can access it. I think that has an impact. Obviously, the administrative responsibilities have increased. So there had to be provision for providing administrative assistance. And then coming to the last working group, the WG, IANT, which organizes the Ibero-American corner and also is responsible for DIV, and it produces translations of documents. It's chaired by Raul Girardi, and it has quite a large working group from South America. And they've had a number of meetings, and they're quite active and in South America. And so finally, this is the end. So I've given you a summary of the CPD portfolio with all the components of the CPD. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Tahir. We'll have our last division report now from the, I think it'll actually be a virtual presentation. Dr. Bernardini is not with us here today, so the Emerging Technology Division will report virtually.
Dear colleagues and IFCC friends of the Council, good afternoon to all of you. And I'm so sorry, but I cannot attend this extraordinary conference after a so long time because of a COVID positivity. But in any case, I'd like to give a look to the activities of the Emerging Technology Division, in particular along 2021 and along the first quarter of 2022. Here you can see the executive committee composition. I'm the chair, I'm honored to be the chair. Then Paolo Fortini is the vice chair, Rhonda Graves secretary, Damien Gruson member, as Michael Rosler and Penjin corporate members. And then we have 4 very active consultants, Maurizio Ferrari, Larry Krisha, Jason Parker, and Martin. And Stephen Hill is the executive board liaison, very active and close to the executive committee of ATD. As you can see, all of us will finish by the end of 2023, our second term. The functional units inside the division are the Committee Emerging Technology in Pediatric Laboratory Medicine, the chair is Tim Lang, the Committee Mobile Health and Bioengineering Laboratory Medicine, Bernard Gaucher, the working group in volatolomics recently closed because it ended its task. The working group in single cell and spatial transcriptomics with Andrew South, the working group in artificial intelligence and diagnostics in genomic diagnostics chaired by Larry Krisha, and the working group in custom genomic panel standardization chaired by Jennifer Morissette. And finally, the working group in metabolomics chaired by Elie Fuchs. During this time, we did many educational activities. I just show you some of them. For instance, at the IFCC Global Conference on COVID-19 in February 2021, we did 2 symposia. In the point of care making the point in September 2021 in Rome, the scientific committee was made by the Emerging Technology Division members. And then a symposia at the African Regional Conference in Lusaka by distance. The Emerging Technology Pediatric Laboratory Medicine Committee organized the International Conference in Pediatric Laboratory Medicine by distance in November 26, 2021. And then we attended with Bernard Gaucher and Damien Gruson the Cola Biocli conference just a few days ago, and by distance with the other members, just delivering a lecture, a symposium about the artificial intelligence, big data, and wearable technologies. And then a new viewpoint is expected, in particular in the regulating direct-to-consumer testing and protecting the consumer in this EuroMedLab in Munich. Another symposium is expected in Seoul about new trends and clinical application in emerging technology. Here you can see the panel of speakers. We attended during this year many national conferences by distance in the main part, but not always. Sometimes we were able to attend in Tunis, in Biarritz, in the Indonesian Association for Clinical Chemistry. We attended the Cutting Edge Laboratory Management in Prague, organized by Thomas Zima, and the Journée francophone de biologie médicale in Rennes, as well as we participated by distance to the conference of the Pakistan Society of Chemical Pathologists, in presence to the Russian Diagnostic Summit in Moscow, and at the Journée de l'Innovation en Biologie in Paris, as well as by distance at the ACBICON 47th annual conference of the Association of Clinical Biochemistry of India, and is expected the attendance of ATD at the Slovenian Association for Clinical Chemistry and Laboratory Medicine in Porto Rods next September. And during this time, we made many publications, obviously the main part devoted to COVID diagnosis, as you can see in blue, the publications that are focused on COVID disease. And in particular, thanks to Bernard Gauger, we had many interesting participation to the e-news. Bernard was very active in this field. The meeting of the executive committee were in February 2021, in November 2021 by Zoom, and in April now. Tomorrow will be hybrid, so some of us will be there and other ones by distance. Just to see very fast the different functional unit features. This is the Emerging Technology Pediatric Laboratory Medicine membership. Tim Lange, as I told you, is the chair. You can see the other members, the consultant, and Rhonda Graves, which is the liaison with the executive committee. And many corresponding members which collaborate very actively with the committee, inside the committee. They did many educational activities. I'd like just to highlight in this context the collaboration with the Society for the Study of Inborn Error in Metabolism and the International Society for neonatal screening, because all together they distribute an interesting survey about the application of newborn screening and many others interesting activities. The finalized project in 2021 was mainly the conference, international conference that I told you before, 2 days conference, and they did regularly the 2 meetings by year, obviously by Zoom. The Mobile Health and Engineering Laboratory Medicine is a very active committee. Here you can see the composition: Gauger, Codani, Nichols, Desier, Eidelof, and Damien Gruson is the liaison with the executive committee. And a good group of corresponding members, which are very active in collaborating with the full member, and start to be a quite interesting corporate member group. Ongoing projects are innovation in wearable electronic devices, role of smart technology, artificial intelligence in fight against the COVID pandemic, application of wearable in the COVID-19 pandemic, and other activities. In particular, I'd like to highlight you the analysis of the rise in quality of care in direct-to-consumer precision health. The direct-to-consumer test is, as you know, raised some concern. So they are studying the difference between this kind of approach, the point of care, other innovative technologies. And another field of interest in this committee is the ethics of artificial intelligence. They did the regular meetings in January and February 2021 by Zoom, and is expected to a committee now in Munich. EB really approved an important agreement between ATD, Committee of Mobile Health and Engineering Laboratory Medicine, and the HIMSS, the Healthcare Information and Management System Society, which is a global advisor of supporting the transformation of the health ecosystem through information and technology. And a joint meeting is expected in next year. The functional unit of volatolomics, chaired by Larry Krisha, with 14 Viencheck members, finished this task, this term, and they did really a good job in scanning all the application of volatolomics that have been reported in the IFCC website. The functional unit, artificial intelligence genomic diagnostics, is very recently, started very recently. And here you can see the very prestigious membership is chaired by Larry Krisha, but we would like to encourage other countries to attend this very important, this interesting working group. We need members from other nationalities than other than US, obviously. They would like to do, in particular, educational activities about the application of artificial intelligence in genomic diagnostics, and with the same main project, which are survey of the clinical diagnostic application of artificial intelligence in genomics. So just looking at recent literature, companies, clinical diagnostic product, and clinical trials. Solicit industry and academia input in the artificial intelligence in clinical genomics survey, assess the role of artificial intelligence genomic tests for detecting COVID-19, in particular the different variants, formulate consensus definition of artificial intelligence and other terms relevant to the application of artificial intelligence in clinical laboratory, and obviously develop recommendation best practice for clinical laboratories, validating and or evaluating artificial-based diagnostic and prognostic method. And to date, they have only communication via mail and telephone, and a collaboration is expected with the EMD about machine learning educational tools. Single-cell and spatial transcriptomics is also started also very recently, is chaired by Andrew South, Joe, Kumar. Also in this case, it should be very good to receive some application for people from other countries than the US. Educational activities are expected, with, in particular for a publication delineating the prerequisites required for the implementation of single-cell technology in the clinical setting, which is ongoing. Obviously, the website construction and a survey to understand the current genomic testing platform available in the clinic, investigation new platform for rapid single-cell genomics, explore technology for single-cell somatic mutational profiling in tumor and normal tissues. Also in this case, they communicated just by mail, telephone, Zoom until now. The working group on guidance for the implementation of custom-made genomic panel is chaired by Jennifer Morissette, very, very active. And here you can see the membership. And the ongoing project are to design and development of the genomic web page at the FCC website. A survey to IFCC affiliated laboratory, in particular a laboratory from developing country, about the opportunity to develop next generation sequencing activity through point of care instruments in loco. Obviously, also this working group met by distance during this year, and an article of Jennifer was published in CAP Today recently, very interesting promotion for this working group. The last one is the working group on metabolomics. It's just born, managed by Eli Fuchs, Corrado Di Natale, which is a great expert in volatolomics too. Frediki David, Juliana Ivanisevic, Jim Otwos, and Bent. This membership is very, very prestigious. And the objectives of this new working group are to evaluate and monitor emerging trends of research in the field of metabolomics, to provide an overview of metabolite discovery strategies by combining metabolomics with orthogonal experimental and computational biological approaches, to assess the application of metabolomics in clinical diagnosis, to develop periodic update of the application of metabolomics technology and methods in clinical diagnosis, to assess the accessibility and the barriers to routine implementation of metabolomics in clinical laboratories, to develop a resource that will inform the FCC community on developments in the application of metabolomics in clinical diagnosis, and to develop a resource that will inform the FCC community. There are a precise plan of actions by this working group. And obviously, educational activities and health technology assessment of metabolomics applications in clinical laboratory are expected. So thank you so much. I'd like to wish you a very interesting Congress and enjoy in Munich. Bye-bye.
So with that final report from the divisions, we have time for a couple of questions. If there's any questions from the floor. Sylvia, I don't think there's any questions from the other group, no? I don't see anything. We gets us a little bit more back on track. Thank you very much. So our last session today is looking at the next challenges and the path forward for the IFCC as an organization. And Dr. Adeli is going to introduce and facilitate this session. So I'll ask Khosrow to come up and we'll look at our third session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. Thank you, everyone, for your great presentation. I think I know it's a long meeting, but we're now entering perhaps the most interesting part, which is an open discussion. We really like to get your feedback on what IFCC is doing and some of the existing programs, some of the new programs that IFCC has started. We would like to open the floor and ask you for comments and questions. It's really important that we receive good feedback from our national societies, whether you're online or here in person. We'd like to hear from you. You have heard of some of the new programs that IFCC has started. Do you have any concerns, questions? Also, the new direction of IFCC and the new vision statement, the new strategic plan, any comments, questions will be appreciated. Also, I should say that we really want to hear from you if there are other ideas and proposals on what IFCC should be doing over the next couple of years. Remember, the IFCC Council only meets every 3 years or so, approximately. So therefore, you'll have, we won't have another opportunity for a couple more years. So if you have any proposals that IFCC Executive Board should consider in relation to other programs, this is the opportunity to speak up. So any other comments before we start the questions, Dave?
No, not from me.
Okay.
Certainly, we're looking for input from the folks here and online.
So there is a question there.
Hello. Hola.
Yes, please.
Please go ahead.
I just want to share with you that last week we had a very interesting activity with the Young Scientists Group of Latin America for Quality Week. So maybe we can next year articulate something together with IFCC and have something interesting together. Actually, different young scientists from Mexico, Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, we prepare different activities all together. So it was a very richful experience for all of us. Maybe for this new idea of being present in Lab Week, we can share our initiatives as well and make something bigger, no?
Certainly. Were you meeting at the Cobbaert conference or this is a different?
No, this is after the Cobbaert conference. We have an activity in the Cobbaert in Mexico, but after that, was last week.
Oh, I see.
We had a very tight agenda with different conferences on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Every country was doing their activities in a different day. Maybe we
Very
can.
nice. Very nice. No, it's glad to hear that. I think this type of energy coming from our young scientists is very much welcome. We really want to encourage, and we meant to contact the Task Force on Young Scientists to try to promote and ask the members around the world to participate in the Lab Week promotion, because I think the best way we can promote the Lab Week is through our young scientists who can act as champions. We already have quite a few nominations for national champions, national society champions, but there are no restrictions. So we would like to have as many young scientists to be nominated as well by the task force, or directly if you want to contact actually the Committee on Public Relations chaired by Professor Rajiv Erasmus is going to be in the future responsible for the Lab Week. Currently, the board, the IFCC board, working with the CPD and others are trying to get the program started. And we have a marketing company that's helping us. Actually, they're based in Argentina. And so we have already, we're starting this program, and IFCC is going to be there to support. But really, you as young scientists and our national representatives are the ones who can really spread the word around the world. And the IFCC will be there to support you in any way possible. We already sent guidelines just a couple of days ago. Sylvia Colilanzi from the office circulated guidelines to our national champions and what they could do to help promote. We can share that document with you. And then, so please, talk to Santiago about, how best to get involved in the promotion of the lab week. This is one area that definitely our young scientists can be very effective.
Actually, it's the second year. Last year we did the same. It was very interesting.
Excellent.
Also for young scientists, because they were also very impressed with the audience that they reached in all Latin America. So that's thank you.
Excellent. But we really do want to support the young scientists. There are plans, and Dr. Rifai mentioned, to increase the number of scholarships, also the number of IFCC exchange programs, so that young scientists can visit other labs for 1 to 3 months for additional training. So we're actually going to likely double the number of exchange programs. IFCC will be investing further. We're also getting additional sponsorship from industry to increase that kind of activity, because I think the best way we can support our young scientists is to help them with continuing education and training and linking. We're actually going to be creating a database of labs who are willing to host young scientists, and then the young scientists can apply to go to those labs for training. So a number of these will be announced soon over the coming months. Please, Dr. Ferrari.
I don't know why I'm old or I'm influenced by the world that is in Europe, but I think that this problem will impact on economics for a long time. And I think that the gap between the developed and not developed countries will increase. My feeling is why the IFCC doesn't do an effort to work in a cheap technology, because this is IFCC has the only power to have more than 50 companies, corporates, but it's difficult to merge the interest of the companies with the cheap technology. This is, I think, that could be one of the working groups or some task, or open-minded this way. This is my feeling, but because we are very close to the problems and to the Eastern countries.
Thanks, Dr. Ferrari, for that comment, because we actually are trying to do something like that. We are developing an IFCC virtual platform. As we said, the IFCC is so large, the community of IFCC, about 50,000 scientists around the world. Less than 5,000 of them can actually travel to these conferences. So we got over 40,000 scientists who need support. So what we're doing is we have actually just signed an agreement with to develop an IFCC virtual platform. This IFCC virtual platform will be could be used for educational activities, actually for congresses and local congresses, regional conferences, and international congresses. So, but other also webinars, as well as town halls, more town halls similar to the ones we had in the fall. We had some town halls with different regions. So this platform would be accessible to all young scientists as well as to national societies. So it can be used. For example, when the young scientists had their event last week, they could potentially use this virtual platform. So that's one way to try to support in a cheap way, because actually it's very inexpensive to use. And it actually will be provided free by IFCC, but even IFCC is not paying much to develop this platform. It's an annual subscription, and the subscription is relatively inexpensive. So we are trying to find a cheap way to provide education, to provide support to our national societies.
I'm not sure if it's, sorry, I'm not sure if it was part of your question, Maurizio, but
chip technology.
yes.
How the chip technology may be available for some countries.
Right. And we are meeting as well during EuroMedLab to talk about the availability of technology to the developing countries. And I think it's a very important point. I think as well, the rapid development of point of care technologies over the last few years will only continue. And that will, of course, provide opportunities for the developing countries, as well as other even remote areas within the developed countries who also don't necessarily have the same availability. So I think it's an important point. I think we will see a couple of IFCC developments specifically around that in the future.
Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, now I realize what you were referring to, sort of providing more accessibility to technology, especially in the developing world. Actually, there is a meeting tomorrow. A group is meeting to discuss that exact point of how to improve accessibility to technology, making it as cheap as possible, as accessible as possible. It's a big task, but there is actually interest from WHO as well in this area. So there was actually, we had a meeting with WHO in December, and this is one of the areas that WHO is interested as well. And we really like to also connect with our corporate members to try to see how this can be accomplished, because it is a major issue. And the COVID-19 pandemic further highlighted the concerns around accessibility to technology. Okay.
Yeah,
yes, please.
Just to add to that, Maurizio. So this meeting that David and Cosro are mentioning, I will attend because I can speak for my company and other companies that we also understand the need in developing countries. And I think certainly the pandemic has really emphasized this. So I hope to learn a great deal tomorrow at this meeting, and then I'll bring it back first to the task force so that we can discuss it, and then of course to the general population of the corporate members. But I think I appreciate the comment, and I think certainly corporate members also understand the great need right now, and it's gotten worse over the last 2 years.
Thank you, thank you. There is a question here, then we go to Maria, please.
Thank you so much, Khosrow, for giving us that opportunity to comment. I'm just continuing with what Ferrari was talking about here, Maurizio. If you look at the world's population, you will see that nearly half, if not more, is in the developing world. Mm-hmm. And if one looks at Africa in particular, where you have about 1.3 billion people, you'll find that 90% of the labs are not accredited. Mm. And that gap is truly felt, because that means that 90% of all the tests that are being produced, we are not really sure about the quality. I do know that the IFCC is putting some efforts into the EQA and so on. But I think that's just one aspect of the total testing process. And so I just want to find out what the EMD committee is doing to assist in getting the quality, not just EQA now, of quality of testing in general. How do we improve it in the developing countries? That's number one. Number two, I'm also the president of the Africa Federation, and we've been organizing lots of workshops and, across Africa. And I want to know, how can the IFCC in particular assist us whilst we are doing workshops and so on, but more assistance is needed. That's the second one. The third one is over the last, I would say, 8 years, through the exchange program, not the exchange program, the professional training program, we trained in South Africa. We trained about 8 people from Nigeria, Ethiopia, Kenya, Zimbabwe, and Zambia. And all those people now have actually become very critical in leading and improving the quality of testing in their respective countries. In fact, on their return back to their respective countries, they became the leaders, in promoting quality. So I'm just hoping that the EMD committee can allocate more resources to training people from Africa to come to it's not to come to Europe or USA. We have programs, for example, in South Africa that can train these people, because I think it's not enough just to improve the EQA. It's also looking at the personnel as well. So it will be a great idea if IFCC could also concentrate on that as part of its strategy and improving quality of testing in the developing countries.
Certainly.
I know there was a committee some years ago. I'm not sure what they really achieved, but that program, the professional program,
Exchange,
is really
yeah.
great.
Yeah.
If we can have more people taking part in it,
Yeah.
and they can actually go back to their respective countries and then push this whole, it's like establishing national champions.
Oh, of course.
In quality.
No, to answer your question, the last question first, I mentioned we are actually significantly increasing the number of scholarships for the professional exchange, the funding to send student fellows to other labs, especially young scientists. So that's going to happen this year, increasing. We already had a discussion at the board meeting in Milan back in February and agreed to increase significantly the number of opportunities for exchange. So by all means, Africa can apply. So there will be an application process, and Africa can apply, everyone, and we were also trying to identify labs who would be willing, like your group, to host these students. So that's happening. So more support coming. But the other question was related to also EMD and how you can get more support. But I think the support is there. The question is, you would have to perhaps have a discussion with EMD and Professor Rifai to see how best you could collaborate so that more assistance can be provided to Africa. But this virtual platform that we're developing and the live webinar series, by the way, the e-learning task force is going to be developing courses as well. So electronic e-courses. And so there will be more e-learning courses, certificate programs, and live webinars that already exist. So those plus what EMD can do can hopefully enhance educational opportunities.
And just one other comment was that I know the IFCC is putting up webinars, once every 2 weeks.
Yes.
I just want to let you know that the AFCC also organizes monthly webinars.
Oh, very good.
So we don't do it fortnightly. We do it once
a month.
Once a month. How do we? I don't know. How do we get more access, or how do we make people more?
You can advertise on the IFCC website. You could. There are other ways. We can talk about that.
Okay.
How best to, and our office can help with promoting.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Maria, please.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
At the first time, I want to say congratulations, everybody. Show us that really you are doing a very good job in IFCC.
Oh,
very
thank you.
hard.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, during the pandemic time. It's so hard. Okay. After my question is, you talk about the EQUES program and in 50 laboratories around the world. These laboratories are big, medium, or small laboratories? Because in my country, Ecuador, the laboratories is 90% small laboratories. So it's very difficult. They afford cost the one EQUES program.
Yeah, sure.
So this program is for which laboratories, and is possible to receive this support, the IFCC, to which laboratories in my country, for example?
Good point. Good question. Well, the program is started this year, is the first year, and it's a pilot. Pilot means it's a small, which means 10 countries, 5 labs per country. And it's a range of, the 5 labs are, some of them are small, some of them are larger. So there's a variety of sizes of labs. We didn't focus only on a small lab or large lab. So it's a variety of labs. But there are 3 countries in South America that are part of this already. There's 2 countries in Eastern Europe, 3 countries in Asia, and 2 countries in Africa. So 10 countries already selected. They have already started the program. We have a coordinator in each of those countries who is distributing. We provide free, so IFCC pays for this material. The company that was selected is called One Word Accuracy. They are actually an international EQA company. They provide, they already are active in Africa. Actually, they're already active in Asia, in Europe, and elsewhere. Anyway, so they are sending the material. IFCC pays for the material. By the way, we came up with a very, very low-cost arrangement. So it's pretty inexpensive. But what we like to do next year is expand. So this is just the first year. So hopefully Ecuador and other countries will become part of this. So this is just the first start to set up the infrastructure to pilot this program. And then after that, I hope that in 23, 24, and 25, you're going to see much more countries involved, as well as more labs in each country. But remember, we're not just providing EQA. The task force is going to be providing workshops. They're going to go to these countries, spend 1 to 2 weeks providing hands-on quality workshops on internal quality as well as external. So it's not just sending samples. We're going to be going the task force, because of COVID, of course, everything got delayed. But we're hoping starting next year, perhaps even later this year, there would be tag teams, 2 or 3 scientists going to each of these countries, providing workshops. So members of the task force will be going to these countries. So I think the program is quite promising, and it's going to get expanded significantly. The 50 labs is just the start. Oh, thank you. Anna, please.
I also want to congratulate everybody for the presentations. And I want to comment about visiting lecturer program. Dr. Rifai mentioned that it was possible to apply that program to virtual conferences. So I think it's interesting to comment how would it be the collaboration in the case of virtual conferences, because the flight is not necessary to be paid for the speakers. So I think that perhaps it could be with translation of the conferences, or perhaps helping to pay the virtual platform used for the different countries. I know that this topic has been raised before, and we have managed these options, but I think that it's interesting to present this in this occasion.
Yes. Yes, Dr. Rifai can comment, but this was discussed.
Yes, that's a great point. Of course, you will not need fund for a virtual conference, but the funds that we will be able to provide is, let's say, you are holding a meeting somewhere in Mexico. We will be able to provide you with the funds to have the presentation professionally recorded, so they will be broadcasted in the region in all Spanish-speaking countries. So we're trying to figure out a useful way to use the funds, keeping the spirit of this particular program. And the other thing we are trying to do, we are trying to work with Claude Lambert, who has great experience in conducting workshops, whether some sort of a workshops, a combination of doing an experiment in the individual's lab and his lab simultaneously, and then try to go over the data together. So we're trying to figure out a way where also virtual workshops can be done. So the funds are available, and we are trying to figure out any helpful and creative way and getting people to share information.
So the answer is yes, there will be funding made available for virtual conferences to support. Since you don't need the speaker to go there, but we can provide other support, yeah, certainly. Krista, please.
Thank you, Professor Adeli.
Yeah.
I think the developed countries also have problems due to COVID, at least in the Netherlands. We saw that patients were pushed back. They were phlebotomized outside of the hospital, and also the analysis were done outside of the hospital. And that meant that the IT exchange of lab data, it was all mixed up because methods are not aligned, and even for tumor markers. So I just do the suggestion that interoperability, even for conventional tests, especially the ones that are not standardized, could also be a worthwhile topic to address in future conferences. And we need other ways than the current lab information systems and hospital information systems. These are just registers and not meant for adequate data, lab data and method exchanges. And we should really look into that, because if labs use non-specific methods, it's not enough clear for clinicians what we are doing. So working on that interface and the digitalization also, but I stress on it even for conventional tests. Yeah.
That's a very pure. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that I think you raised a very good point. And with the increasing availability of direct-to-patient testing, which is a developed country issue, we're going to see even greater problems along those lines. So when Google and Microsoft and Amazon start providing testing available to patients without a physician, you'll have even a greater problem with the results not being available broadly.
Yeah, also to add to that, like in Canada, in our state province, Ontario, they have actually done that. They've created a sort of a database, or not database, what do you call it? A network of all of the labs now feeding lab data into this network. Actually, there are two. There's one for children and one for adults. And so this is sort of starting to happen. The problem is that this data coming from different hospitals has very, potentially different methods are used. And so lab people need to be involved to look at how to harmonize some of this information. So I see what you're talking about.
We should better support the entire medical workflow, and that is now happening. And even for transplant patients, I've had the cases which are under immunosuppressive drugs with different methods. So it's a huge issue, and especially in countries which do not have a national policy on a national EPD. Yeah, so we are suffering from all the different EPDs per hospital.
Certainly,
yeah.
Certainly. Okay, there is a question online. I
There's a
believe.
few questions
Oh,
from
few
online,
questions.
and thank you very much for those that are joining virtually. First of all, from Denmark, thank you for the good presentations and oversight of activities. There are many good initiatives and working groups. However, it seems that a huge coordination between these working groups is needed, so overlapping issues will be approached in a holistic perspective. For example, laboratory informatics includes CNPU work, AI, emerging technologies, and so on. How will IFCC approach this coordination issue in terms of preventing the overlap?
Very good point, talking about how to best coordinate activity across these task forces, committees, working groups. It's a major task, but we have done some of that. As you know, some of committees have been canceled, actually, have been merged. So actually 3 committees were merged into the task force on global lab quality. So the task force on global lab quality is a merger of 3 committees. We right now have really no overlap in that area. It's just one group working on that. There are e-learning, the same thing. We closed 2 committees and created 2 e-learning. One was e-learning, one was distance learning, and both of those have been turned into this new task force. So some of that has been done trying to reduce any overlap, but there is still overlap exists, I agree. And so the board would have to really look into that over the next couple of years to see how best to optimize and minimize overlap.
I would just add that just recently the board EB met with the various divisions in terms of an overview and review to meet with each of the chairs and often their executive committees to review what was happening, to look again for those sorts of opportunities to enhance activities and to potentially prevent overlap of activities. Another question coming from the virtual group is it possible to introduce as observers representative members from the various regional federations with the divisions? So I think the question is, can we improve the communication between the divisions and the regions?
And the region.
Yeah.
So yeah, we currently have a regional representation at the board. So we have we have one board member from each region. So that has really significantly enhanced communication with regions. But we don't have directly representation at the division level. But this is something that we can take back to the board and discuss to see how that could be improved. But I should say that usually these divisions have committees and working groups, and there are members from all regions serving on these committees. So there is already a significant representation from all regions, but maybe not an official regional federation representative. So something we'll take back and discuss.
A comment from Dr. Gouget. The IFCC established an MOU with ILAC when Graham Beastall was president, and perhaps he said we can reinforce the collaboration between the European Cooperation for Accreditation and the African countries. So perhaps IFCC can move on that.
That's a good point. Actually, something we didn't discuss because it's still in development. Dr. Stephen Hill is working on an accreditation program for IFCC, where we would be able to become an accreditation body, but we would need to work with ILAC to make that possible. So we're actually going to be contacting ILAC and discussing with them. The idea is to create an accreditation system so that we can, when national societies have events and conferences, we can actually potentially provide accreditation for those programs. But this is work in progress. So I agree, Bernard, the connection and the link with ILAC is very important, and we're going to actually be utilizing that very soon.
I don't see any more questions, Sylvia, from online, but we
there
have
is a question there.
Yes.
Thank you. Just to return briefly to the emerging crisis in healthcare, as I would like to call it. We're certainly seeing, over the last couple of years, an increasing crisis in healthcare, both in terms of accessibility and cost of healthcare, and laboratory medicine is a big part of that. Obviously, what we do in laboratory medicine is important to that in terms of patient pathways and how healthcare works. I think we all very much welcome the great, things that are happening now in e-learning in terms of giving training online worldwide, and Professor Rifai's program and the EFLM Academy and many national societies individual offerings, and it'd be great if we can pull that together. One area that I think is very important is appropriate test use, which is at the sort of other end of the scale, where I think it may be worthwhile focusing more on that in terms of being able to instruct or adapt appropriate test use in order to benefit healthcare. We know the solutions to that are partly educational, but also around IT, and the comments on lack of standardization and interoperability between systems are vital in order to make that happen. So I would certainly recommend that IFCC look at both interoperability and appropriate test use as potential areas to develop. Thank you.
Thank you. The point about appropriate test use, I really like that idea. And actually, I was meaning to recommend to the board to look at, and also our divisions, to see which division could take this on. But the idea of forming a group that will work on lab utilization, this issue of appropriate lab utilization is a very important area. Many hospitals in North America have committees, including my hospital. We have a committee on lab utilization, and this is a joint committee between physicians and lab scientists, and we regularly review, and we actually came up with several recommendations. We have, for example, reviewed and changed many of the order sets and removed certain tests from the order set to reduce utilization. But a lot more can be done in terms of providing. IFCC could provide guidelines perhaps around lab utilization, but it's something that requires still a lot of thinking as to what we need to do and how we could do it. How can we potentially work on guidelines in this area? So I think that's a good point you're raising. Dr. Pillay.
Before that, I'll just add that those of you from North America will be aware of Choosing Wisely, Choosing Wisely US, Choosing Wisely Canada, and Choosing Wisely has in fact branched out to many other countries around the world. Their focus, of course, is on utilization. Now, they've sometimes been criticized because they only focus on what you should not do, as opposed to what things you maybe should do for tests that are not appropriately utilized. But it's a great resource, and we know, in fact, that there are a number of recommendations both from the US and from the Canadian group, and I think from elsewhere in the world. So perhaps one of the things IFCC can do is perhaps make those recommendations available and serve to bridge the gap between Choosing Wisely and other members who aren't aware of that group.
Exactly. Yeah, there are many groups already active around the world in this area, but perhaps what IFCC could do is coordinate that, bring the information together, make it readily available to our national societies. Okay, Dr. Pillay.
Thank you very much. Just to follow up on Dr. Bernie Crowell's and your comments as to who should deal with this issue of test utilization, I think it falls very, very appropriately with EBLM, and we've got the chair of EBLM here. Thanks.
Good point. Yeah. So we should be talking to you about that. Okay. Yeah. One more, please.
Dr. Mohammed from Iraq. I would like to inquire about more support from IFCC to the applicable research, patent, creative research to develop it as a test or markers, something like this. Coordination from IFCC with the company to support the researchers in this area, if possible.
In terms of diagnostic test development and patenting and commercialization, I think you're referring to. Yeah, we don't have currently a granting system where we support research studies or research projects at this time. I mean, it would be nice, but IFCC's resources probably does not allow us to have a significant granting program. But we do provide, we have recently significantly increased support to regional federations. So like the Arab Federation has a fund, IFCC funds that you could apply to as well. There is funds available. But so there could be perhaps case by case, there could be a request made to the regional federation or directly to IFCC, but we don't have a granting program. And I don't think our resources allow us to fund research because I guess resources are mostly to support laboratory medicine service, clinical service, quality, education. Research is nice. I'm actually a researcher myself, and I do apply for grants, but the IFCC is not sort of in that business because we don't, it's not part of the mandate of IFCC. But if there is a good idea, you could contact the regional federation or the IFCC.
I think we're at the hour now, so I'll ask Dr. Adeli, do you have any closing comments, Khosrow?
Sure, just a quick last couple of words that first of all, I'm impressed with the attendance, both here and online. I think together we have quite a few representations from national society. So it's great to see that. First of all, I really am happy to we didn't know what to expect when we organized this council meeting, but I think we had a very successful event. We had great presentations from our division chiefs as well as from our board members. And so I think we have had a good discussion. We're going to take some of your feedback back to we actually have a board meeting starting this Wednesday. So it's fresh in our mind. And we're going to discuss some of the points that were raised today. But do feel free to contact us at any time. Email either myself, David, or any of our board members with your comments. Also, if you're in a region, like, for example, Latin America, you can contact Anna, who is our representative from Latin America, Kolabiokli. If you're in Africa, you could go through Dr. Erasmus, and so we have and Okasina, who is our representative from Africa, and so on and so on. So you have many people you can contact to ensure that you are heard and your feedback is received by the board for further consideration. So I want to close and invite you. We have a brief sort of a small refreshments just to so that you're not too hungry before you go to the next session, which is our opening ceremony. Our opening ceremony is starting at 5. What time is now?
4 o'clock now.
Oh, we got good timing.
Yeah,
so you have time to be able to have a snack, and then please come and to our, where is the plenary session, Sylvia? Is in the auditorium? Yeah, the auditorium. So thank you all.